Hope everyone's doing well. Welcome to the Magia Mindset. Today's guest has played at the highest level, has had stints in the EPL, has also had a stint for the historic club Rangers Glasgow. He is currently playing for the OCSC within the USL Championship Division. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Rob Kiernan. Roll the intro. Robbie, I know it's been difficult in last year as well as transitioning to this year to put in the time to get on our episode. I truly appreciate you making the time in your busy schedule. I can only imagine during a pandemic how your schedule has been as a player professionally, coming abroad from the UK to all the way to the US and envisioning one thing and obviously getting a whole flip side to it. So again, truly appreciate you putting in the time and getting on our platform.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, to kick it off, it was a bit of a awkward start to my life in California. Mate, I got off the plane, and then 2 weeks later we was in lockdown, and my journey come to a bit of a abrupt halt, and found ourselves being in lockdown and no training, no games, and actually at that point I was thinking, whether they'd sort of release me from my duties because the game and the season was over, and then would my visa then become worthless in a sense. So I was worried about having to go back home to London and all that kind of stuff. So managed to play like one game, and then we went into lockdown. So ever since, just been finding my feet here and living in terms of like just normality and finding my feet in terms of being a Californian now. So it's been a good start, but it was a little bit awkward to start off with for sure.
No worries. Right off the bat, I want to get into obviously being a professional and getting that career going. It's always like, how did you get started? What made you fall in love with the sport? And what was it that really put that fire within you to kind of, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
I remember, I can tell you the exact time. I went to watch Mexico versus England at Wembley when I was about 4 years old. My dad took me, and I didn't realise that the stadiums were in a building, and in that Wembley you had to walk down the steps to the pitch was so deep, and I couldn't believe that there's a stadium with a pitch in there, and the lights and the atmosphere and everything was just crazy. So I think from about 4 years old, I got that bug and that desire. And then from there, I started playing just locally, probably like every other boy does. Got picked up by Watford Academy when I was 6. And there was only an under-9s team at the time. So I was actually playing like 3 years above. And from there, it just, it's taken me to where I am today. It's been a long journey for sure.
No, for sure. If we had to kind of get into the times that you kind of were getting started, and I think it's easy when you kind of establish yourself and you have the routine, you have your team around you that allows you to check into your off season, to your in season. But that starting point to put your foot in the door is one of the most difficult part for anyone. If it's getting into the academy system, and then from the academy system, it's so competitive, especially from where you were getting started in the UK, the most popular sport in the world, knowing everybody wants to make it. And it's a meal ticket for some to get them out of the slumps. So what was the most difficult moment for you, and what allowed you to persevere through it?
Like you said there, we'll fast track a little bit. Obviously, I went through the academy, played for every age group, got a professional contract when I was about 15. And then from there, it was all about trying to get into the first team. At the time, the club were in the Premier League, so it wasn't easy. It was never going to be easy. So I used to go knock on the manager's door and just say, can I go on loan here? Can I go there? Can I go here? And at times I was going on loan just for like a month, just because I thought if I can go and get 4 first team games, it's better than playing in the under-18s or in the reserve team. So I was just desperate. And if you look at my CV, you'll see I've got a list of loan clubs, and it was literally just a case of like so desperate to try and break into Watford's first team at the time that I was prepared to go anywhere to prove that I was good enough. And those loan clubs, I think they're pivotal in everyone's career because they teach you the ugly side. You come from a nice club where you get looked after extremely well and everything's available to you and more. And then you go to the probably not so pretty clubs where it's a little bit less fortunate in terms of facilities and stadiums and everything that comes with it. And then I finally got a breakthrough. Brendan Rodgers was the manager at the time, and he gave me my debut against Crystal Palace. I came on as a right back. Never played there in my life, but it was an experience, and it was just like I had my parents in the stadium, and from there that was my first sniff. And after that, I was just desperate for more. I ended up playing 2 games for Watford, and then I got bought by Wigan Athletic, who were a Premier League team, who kind of bought me as a project. They thought that I could go on and be a player for them. And again, I went there at 19 and wasn't ready for the first team. And again, I went on loan. At this time now, I was going to better loan clubs, Brentford being one of them, and higher league clubs. And then mate, got called back actually whilst on loan to a club called Southend. And my debut for Wigan was against Watford, my old club, and I managed to get man of the match in that game, and that was it. My career was on the roll.
No, and it's so crazy how it's moments like those that allow things to get rolling on a high. And one of my things I want to get into, because there's levels to levels. I think there's players that have played in Asia. There's players that have played only in the US. Maybe USL is the highest. Maybe MLS is the highest. They never got a experience in Europe, and they don't understand that there's different of levels. I want to kind of break down the behind the scenes. When you were at those clubs, at those highest level of clubs, what was it, if you had to go into detail, that really stood out? You're like, this is what, and we can kind of come fast forward to your time in USL, where some of maybe the audience is from here, from the US. What is the big difference of this level right here and that level?
I have this conversation a lot. And I'm a big believer in the 1%, and I'm a big believer that they make up the bigger picture. So let's break down Ronaldo, for example. And listen, I know that this guy is an alien, okay, in terms of ability, but let's break him down. So Ronaldo has the best trainers, diet, facilities, recovery, doctors. He has a team around him. So every single day, Cristiano Ronaldo gets better by that much because he has a team around him as well as the mentality that he has. Now, if you don't have that around you, say, for example, you don't get the right nutrition and you don't have the right sports science behind you, a team that can, maximize what you've got genetically. If you don't have, recovery where you're not going into recovery tanks, or, you haven't got masseuses that can look after your soft tissue, like all those things, in my opinion, they make up the picture. So, and this is no disrespect to the USL in any way. It's just that it's not at that level yet. And the training grounds and the facilities that the players have, they're not at the same level. So I have a conversation with the boys that are here, and you've got to imagine every single day those boys in the UK, they are in that facility and they are in that environment and they're getting better daily. So what are you doing to catch up? How are you trying to bridge that gap? Because you've got to work 10 times as hard just as them, because they're fortunate enough to walk in every day and have that, and unfortunately here they don't. So the gap's going to get bigger and bigger, and it's going to be so competitive that, unfortunately, if you don't bridge that gap in some capacity, then it's going to be tough.
And we started talking about it, putting the team around you, but kind of breaking down the mindset, as you kind of touched on it with Cristiano Ronaldo having the mentality. But yeah, you have to put the team around. I think, let's say someone has the resources, they have all of the resources to put the team around them. But what is the mentality? What is the mentality? You being in that 1%, in that group of the UK. I mean, you're around those players that are that top echelon of elite mindsets, including yourself, that it takes in not only twice a week, not only 3 times a week, 7 days a week during your recovery, all of it, the mentality, because as much as we want to say it's the physical, it's the tactical, it's the technical, the mentality to constantly push and push is so important. What are the key qualities you look at that makes that elite, that tip of the arrow, different than the rest?
I have this, and again, I have this conversation a lot. There's two sides to this argument. I think in my opinion, I think you're born with that animal in you. So when I say that animal, I mean the animal that's like, I don't think you can be taught. Like, you're either hungry and desperate to succeed, and everything else is irrelevant, or you are put in an environment and you quickly learn that, okay, this is what everyone else is doing. I need to catch up with them if I want to stand a chance. So there's two people in the room now. There's one like the Ronaldo who, regardless of where he came from or what he did have, I've seen videos of him training with ankle weights and doing this and doing that. Like, he had that animal in him. Nothing was going to stop him. He could have lived in a palace in the royal family, and I still think he'd have that attitude, because I think that's born. I think he's born with it. Then you get the other side of the coin where I think, yeah, they don't really know that they've got that animal in them, but they quickly learn through the environment they're in, because they see the older pros doing it, or they see the guys that are hungry are doing it, and they feel like, if I'm not doing it, then I'm out the door. So it's a two side of that coin. I love to find a player that has that mentality in them. I think listen, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't the most talented. I wasn't the most talented player naturally. I'm sitting next to someone here who was miles ahead of me in terms of natural talent, but I was the hardest worker in the room times 10. So it wasn't a case of, oh, he's better than me. It was a case of, I'm going to be just as good as, if not better, because I work harder at it. And listen, I've got someone next to me here, and I'll say it to him 10 times. I think if he had the mentality that I had, he'd be a Premier League player still today, because the ability he's got was crazy. He was the best kid in England at 16. He was getting bought for £1 million at 16 years old, because they all saw the natural ability that he had. He's playing for England. He's playing for this and that. He's got Nike, Adidas throwing deals at him left, right, centre. But maybe, did he get it a little bit too early? Did he take his foot off the gas a little bit? I don't know. I didn't have any of that. So I was constantly like trying to catch up. And then eventually I grew, I developed, and I don't know, we then, I sort of caught up to him, and we maintained a career at the same level, So, but what I'm saying is, I think he could have gone even more than I ever could have gone, because I think he had more natural ability,
No, 100%. And it's so crazy when you're in those environments that there are players that have the mentality. Some are just talented and they show up like and it's culture. It's culture. You have we were on a team that we had Brazilians, we had Africans, we had English, Scottish. You had the Scottish and English that were a little bit tense, hard-nosed. You had the Brazilians that would come in very relaxed, but you saw the raw talent of creativity that they had. So they come from that culture. My thing is, the teams you've played on different cultures, you're going to have that mix. Was there like a experience we can go down memory lane and go into that you're like, it was fights every day, fighting for positions every day, and if you're not on your toes, you're going to get embarrassed, and when you get embarrassed, they were going to remind you about it, and you might have lost your position to go into that Saturday, that Sunday, having an opportunity to be in that group to showcase yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I remember being at Wigan. Okay, so there's a lot of Spanish lads there. We had Roberto Martinez, who was very tactical and knew everything, about the game. He was an incredible detail man. Now, I knew that the boys I was playing up, trying to take their shirts off, one of them was the captain of Scotland. One was playing for Honduras. One was, Barbados captain. These boys are international boys, and they're all probably 8, 9, maybe 10 years older than me at the time. So I'm thinking, experience-wise, I haven't got a leg to stand on. Like, how am I going to be different? All right. So only way I could be different was I would be the horrible, nasty kid that would smash people and shout and grab and bite, and anything I could do to try and get in the manager's eyesight, I would do. And training wasn't easy. Like, I've got strikers, who are twice the size of me, trying to just treat me like a little kid, and I've got to fight against that, plus be good on the ball. So Wigan was definitely a big learning curve. Being at Rangers was the same. Like, the intensity and the pressure for playing for that club is crazy. So it's not just like your game trying to outdo your teammates to get a position. It's also 55,000 fans watching you every week, and the scrutiny of the media and everything else. It's a lot to take on. So it's constantly getting judged, constantly.
And it's so important how you said finding your niche. Like you were saying, like, you know what, I wasn't the biggest. So I had to show my grit. I had to get stuck in like that. I had to get nasty because I didn't have this kind of quality that was going to get Martinez's attention. So you found your qualities that made you different than the others, and it was your special qualities. How important is that? Picking out one or two key qualities you have and really spotlighting that, because or is it something that some players get confused and say, you know what, my right is not good as my left. Let me balance that out. Let me balance my headers out, but I'm 5'6", but I still want to jump high enough to get headers in. How do you kind of evaluate what are your strong strengths, and do you just work on your strengths that really make you different? What is it that singles you out?
I think this is a good question. I think for me, technically, I was probably the best in my age group growing up, and that's because I worked on it. I had a right and left foot that were both probably matching. You know, there was no weaknesses. In my opinion, I could go and take any set piece or long range pass with each foot and not even think about it. And that was definitely my strength, my distribution, and probably a little bit of composure. You know. But I needed to work on the ugly side, because everyone, I got told a million times, listen, we think you're great with the ball, like we think you're the best we've got, but you need to go and be an ugly defender. So for me, I kind of flipped it on its head, and I was like, well, if they think I'm good with the ball, then I'll show them that I can also do the ugly stuff. And I kind of went away from the technical side and just thought, right, I'm going to be robust, I'm going to be horrible, I'm going to be ugly, I'm going to win all my headers, I'm going to try and organise, win my tackles, everything else. So I kind of used my weakness to my strength. So I kind of got so good at aerial stuff, and I practiced, and then that became a strength in itself. And I was like, well, I've got both now. I can do the ugly stuff, and I've still got that foundation. So I think that's kind of what gave me my career, if you like. So just had to find that little bit in me where I just thought, this is ugly, this is not great, I don't really like doing this, but I'm gonna have to go and break my nose, or I'm gonna have to go and put my head in somewhere that hurts, or go and look up against the big boys and do well. That's kind of what my mentality was.
Yeah. So you're talking about Roberto Martinez. So Martinez, world-class coach, playing for someone like that. What really stood out about him? What made him so special as a coach? And
just the details, like we do like passing drills, and he'd like, right, you've got 17 seconds for a break, and he'd be like, because that mirrors the time a ball goes out, and by the time the crowd throw it back in and take a throw in, that's probably how much time you'd have left. And like, it was just like mad details like that. And I was like, I wouldn't even think about how long the ball was out of play, and by the time it got thrown back in, but he would like on average know how long it took, or like he would like know that the cone distance between each one was like 4 ball whips apart, and he knew that if you could wrap it into that gap, it would be the equivalent of not being able to get it intercepted. And it was just like crazy details. And he used to come out with an iPad. Like, he had an iPad before all of us knew what. Do you know, like, when the iPads first came out, the touch ones?
Yeah.
Have that on it, and he'd be like, yeah, just the details, man. Details. It was just crazy.
Any interesting story about a session that you're like, outside of that passing, if we get more specific into it, that really kind of opened your eyes of whenever you're doing your own training on your own? Obviously, a lot of the professional athletes, they do have their own coaches and trainers on their own, but sometimes on your own, you're setting up your own activity as well. Was there anything that you're like, what's stood out from him, and you kind of got to
I got exposed doing a 1v1 session. Like, we were just 1v1s, and I had like Victor Moses running at me, and I was just thinking, God, I'm not built for this. And it was horrible. I got nutmegged, he glided past me like I wasn't there at times. And so I took it to heart. And then one of the pros, Gary Caldwell at the time, he took me under his wing. And, from then on, I said, every day I've got to do 1v1s. Got to do it, and I had a guy called Callum McManaman running at me. And like, these guys are just, they can turn on like the speed like that. And it's embarrassing. Like, it's actually embarrassing. But I ended up doing it every day with Gaz, and I asked, I said, in 6 weeks' time, I said, Victor, come and run at me again, and I'd maybe tackle him twice out of 10 as opposed to 0, and then another 6 weeks' time, I'd just keep doing it, and then after a while, I kind of learned, okay, how am I going to do it? And then I've kind of now in a game, I'm like, I kind of know what to do. Like as a defender, you're always on the back foot. You know, you're getting run at. Like people have momentum. They decide what they're going to do. They jink, they push it, or whatever they're going to do. I have to react from that. But I know if I show them a space and I can use my arm and try and use my strength to get in the way of him and the ball, then I've got a chance. You know.
No,
So
for sure.
one-on-one stuff was.
What was the difference between Martinez and Rodgers?
Not a lot. Both played the same way. Both very detailed. Rodgers made you feel very confident. That was his big sort of coaching.
How about
sort of, just you do things well. He'd applaud you, take you in and into his office and tell you what you did well and how he liked it, and he made you feel like I'm not just a young kid. I'm actually got a chance of being a first team player. But like I said, I only had 2 games. At Watford like that. So it was he came in just from Chelsea and then he went off to wherever he went to. But yeah, both very good, both very detailed. I think the biggest thing for me, I've had a lot of managers. I think details and I think how you manage people. I think you, as a man, you respect people that treat you nicely and respectfully, as opposed to the ones that just treat you like a piece of meat or a dog, and then expect you to want to work for that person is a little bit crazy, I think.
That's so crazy you say that, because usually some people forget that at that level, everybody's like, oh, the professionals, they know the game. There's no reason we got to have a personal relationship with them or care about them as human beings. Let's just say that. And we just got to get the tactics in. They got to know their job. They do it. And now that you see a lot of these coaches like Klopp and stuff that are getting on a more personal level with their players, putting their arm around the shoulder. When they look at a player that they see them get upset on a substitution coming out, and pull him back in and explain to them that your still value is important. There's a reason I'm doing this, not because you're not good enough, but it's because the team needs you to come so I can put a different style of player in there to change it. How important is that man management into a team to kind of get the best of an organization?
Yeah, I don't think it's even just sport. I think it's in general in life. Right? You treat people with that respect that they deserve, and don't leave them guessing. You just treat them as humans. I think you're going to get more out of them. That goes for a chef. That goes for anyone. He doesn't have to be a soccer player or a sportsman. I think that's how you treat people in general. But I think you see more now, and I think that you build that relationship, that team spirit amongst your players as well as your staff. It's not just your manager, it's the physio, it's the masseuse, it's the chef. Everyone's part of that boat and driving forward and trying to build something and create success. You've got to treat people respectfully these days. I think to get the most out of them. I don't think you can just bark orders and expect people to just to react in a certain way. I think people are I wouldn't say that it's a softer generation, but I would definitely say people like being told, the good as well as the bad, but they like it in a detailed manner, not just get on with it. I think it's got to be more than that now.
No, for sure. You touched on Victor Moses. Outside of Victor Moses, you being a defender, going at, very elite strikers or midfielders. If we had to put, let's just say 1 or 2, who were the couple players that really was difficult for you in the training grounds? If we want to talk about the first one in the training grounds.
Training grounds, Callum McManaman was incredible on his day. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the FA Cup final against Man City, but he ran the show, man the match, won the game from. And honestly, on his day, he's a very good friend of mine. And I don't like saying it just because he's my friend, but he's genuinely unstoppable. He's unstoppable.
What makes him unstoppable? What makes him unstoppable?
His skill level and his speed and the chop that he does is just he's going to chop you. And well, this is the thing, as a defender, getting chopped as a defender, and when I say chopped, it means a fake shot that they cut back inside and they have a shoot with the left foot or vice versa. Now, if you don't try and block the shot and he chops you, if you don't try and block the shot and he shoots, you look like an idiot, because why haven't you tried and block the shot? Yeah. If you block the shot and he chops you, you're like an idiot because he's just made you look stupid. So
pick your poison.
Read people. Yeah, it's what do I go for? And half the time, honestly, he chops you and then chops you again and then nutmegs you and then makes you look even more. So sometimes I just used to try and smash him.
Yeah.
Like before he even got a dart, I just tried to smash him, nail him, and even then he would just, nutmeg me or something. I don't know, but yeah, he was crazy. I played against Inter Milan in a preseason friendly for Watford, and I played against Adriano and Figo, and them boys were just crazy. Adriano like controlled the ball in his neck. He swiveled and then put it in the top corner from about
The
30
striker
yards.
Adriano, correct?
Yeah.
Oh.
So like people like that, they were just aliens. And then I remember another one as well. I went up to Kilmarnock on loan, and I played against Robbie Kiernan when he just signed for Celtic, and he was very good. His movement was crazy. Quite small, wasn't even the biggest, but just good player.
No, Robbie Keane, it's funny because he's not talked about that much, like compared to he's a world-class player. He was very good. He's a world-class player. And unless you kind of went shoulder to shoulder, he's not the ones like I'm talking about people throw into the world-class kind of thing. They are like, oh, good player, he play. But he is, when you play against them or with him, I mean, he technically good.
All right, well, I'll tell you another one. So I don't know if you guys know, but Emil Heskey, right? England, he's deemed to be the big striker that just holds the ball up, doesn't score. The guy's played for England over like 40 times.
Yeah.
Like he for a big man, has got unbelievable feet. So he came to train at Wigan for like 2 months. I think he was just trying to get a club. I think he'd been at Liverpool and he was just trying to train and get fit. I think he lived in Liverpool. And I couldn't get the ball off him. And like I'll tell my mates, oh, I've got Emil Heskey training with us, and they're like, oh, he's no good. And I was like, boys, he's outstanding. He's like scary good. You don't play for England for that many times if you're not bringing something to the team that's incredible. And he is, honestly. Like, so people's perceptions of people they see on TV is so far off the reality. So Robbie Keane's another one, but Emil Heskey, I can name loads, but honestly, they bring something that is so hard to play against. That's what you've got to remember. They might not score the goals, but what they're doing for the team is insane.
No, I mean, Robbie, it's so crazy. Even when we were playing in Iran, there were some players that would come into the camp and they were special. And players that are even at that level, I think, yes, sometimes that's why the mindset becomes important in sustaining, and your marketability makes you in the media's eyes, oh, he's the greatest of all time, he's world class. There's a lot of players that are unsung heroes in a sense of talented players that we don't talk about, but if they're there and they're getting their noise on the national team of England, and especially in England, where right now, if we talk about highest level, is the Premier League. Right now, it's currently the best football. The coaches are there. The level's high. If you're at that level, whichever team you're on, you can play and you're quality. People from the outside can say one thing, but if you're a number 10 for a team, that you have the qualities to do it. And it's funny. I think like every generation, it feels like you go into the training ground and you're like, man, am I getting shorter or the players getting bigger? It's like every generation, positions that weren't supposed to be big, like the central midfielders, now they're getting 5'10", 6 feet. And it's insane.
I watched Pogba and McTominay, is it? And who else? I think they were like 6'3", those boys. Like they're athletes, they're monsters.
And it like, yeah, Zlatan, what's Haaland and Zlatan are like 6'6". That's insane for footballers. So like, as I wanted to kind of now transition on your loan experience, being on loan for so many, how did that really develop you mentally? How did it really challenge you mentally to having to pack up from one team, go to another team, and transition? People don't understand how hard that is to go from one team to another. First, move into your place, unpack, get yourself ready. Now is ready to go into training ground, mentally be ready there, come home. You're not even unpacked yet. You got to set up your food, your nutrition, settling in. And if you're going from one team constantly to that, can you kind of get into detail how those experiences really made you who you are today?
Yeah, because it doesn't daunt me moving to America. Like it doesn't even. It's like I left home at 16 years old, and I've been on the road since. When I say the road, I mean like, yes, I've settled in at places and stuff, but you live out your suitcase, and you got to be prepared to go where it happens. Because I'll tell you what happens: the manager comes in, he doesn't like you, you're off. And every manager wants to bring in their own players to build a team around. So like you understand the territory you're in, but it kind of just it develops you as a person, a human, like, a lot quicker. I think I've got friends that still live at home. You know, that they're, you know, that's no disrespect to them, but they've not left their home. They haven't left their hometown. You know, I moved up to Scotland. I moved up to, you name it. I've probably lived there in the UK. I've moved. I think I've lived in like 14 different homes so far. You know, so like you can imagine where I've been and what I've done, and people I've met. But I think you just get on with it. I think it's just part and parcel of the journey that we're on. And Harry's the same. Like, you know, you get on with it. But now I feel like I'm in a really nice place where I can feel my sort of anxiety not so evident, because I feel like I'm at home. I love this place I'm in terms of, yes, the soccer I love, yes, everything, you know, I love it, but actually as like a place where I can enjoy living as well. Like I love it here. So now I feel like a lot more at ease, and I can see where my future is going to be, as opposed to like, where's my next contract going to be? Where am I going to move to? You know, you're always on edge at times because your contract's running out. You know, you've got a year left on your deal. Where are you going? You know, so it's not as easy as everyone thinks. I'll be honest with you. It's not easy. It's not easy.
And how challenging is that, knowing, you know, always on the back of your mind every day to wake up, to go train? Because I've even, myself and players we talked to today now, all obviously on the edge of wanting to settle on their next team, knowing their contract is up. But your main thing is what? You got to be focused. So I want to kind of get into the difficulty of that part, but how important is having the right team if your agent, your person that kind of takes care of those deals. So you can go every day when you wake up, Robbie, you're training and not having to worry about your contract is up. Where am I going to land next? All of that becomes such a distraction. If we can kind of get into that.
It's a tough one. I've had agents where I've got on, agents I haven't got on with. I've got good and bad experiences with it, I suppose. And I think if I was listening as a young soccer player, I would definitely have my family number one. I think they're always going to be there for you, regardless of how successful you are on the field or not. And also, you've got to remember, you know, every agent that looks after their player, it's a job to them. So of course they, you know, 99% of them have probably got the best interest at heart, but obviously, you know, there's a business aspect to that as well. So you've got to think, you know, where's my agent's, you know, real concerns? Is it what's best for me, or is it, you know, the best deal I can possibly get my player and I get paid? So I don't know. It's a tough question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm just going to give you my experiences. I think the biggest thing is having a family or network of friends that you're always going to be your friends, regardless of how well or successful you're doing in life. They're always going to be there, and I've got that, and they're my pride and joy, you know. So
How do you select an agent to represent you?
I think you just get that feel with people. I think you understand, you know, them as a person. You know, I think underneath it all, they're your friend. Underneath that, it's just, you know, two people that's, you know, on a venture together. And I think you got to just choose who you feel comfortable with and who's got best interest at heart. So that's the only thing I can say, to be honest.
No, for sure. So now we've kind of touched base on kind of the journey you've had in UK and transitioning now coming out here to the USL. Obviously, it's not been the transition you've been planning for, with the pandemic putting a little wrench in it. I want to kind of touch base on what the plans are now, if of your USL season, and kind of what is your mind frame of where you are in your life and your journey, and kind of going from there.
Yeah, so I don't even know if this fixtures have been scheduled yet. There was talks of it being scheduled for May. I don't even know if that's been confirmed. Obviously, there's talks of the vaccine being mandatory. Who knows? I don't know the answer to that. All I do know is that this is a season where I'm super hungry. I've started training probably about 3 weeks ago, and we're currently training 3 times a week as a club, with pre-season still being about 6 weeks away. So my mindset right now is that I'm going to go into this season with everything I've got, because I'm 30 years old now. I've been doing this for 14 years professionally. I know that having a good foundation in terms of fitness and sharpness will propel me into a good form. Last year I wasn't, you know, where I needed to be. I knew that. in terms of fitness and sharpness and stuff, because I'd actually come out of, I'd done a pre-season with Southend. I played all the games. Then I came here, met the guys for like a week. Then it got shut down. Then I was like in and out of training. I didn't have any gym. I didn't have any sort of continuity. It was like training, but no one could, have contact. It was not what I need. I know what I need. And if I can have that, good solid base foundation of fitness, sharpness, all my plyometric, my power stuff, all my technical stuff, all my defending bits that I need to do, I feel like I have a really good season under my belt. And then from there, I'd love to stay here long term. I'd love the club for there to be a continuity in terms of signing this club again. But listen, I'm just hungry to play. Like, I'm hungry to come out here and give a good account of myself and show everyone what I can do.
How challenging right now, because obviously it's unheard of what we're going through with this pandemic. It's unprecedented. It's it's been the most difficult thing for, I think, professional athletes and even youth athletes at every level, athletes in general.
Yeah.
What has been the challenging things that you've gone through personally, and what has helped you to refocus, adapt, and not miss a beat in your training regimen?
I can be honest with you, my training took a real halt because I couldn't do the things that I rely on. So I'm one of those players that I rely on having explosive strength, power. I need heavy weights. I need like sleds. I need like things that help me become sharp and fast and explosive, because heading, running into channels, tackling, body contact, they're all the things that I kind of need. And I didn't have any of that. Like, I couldn't even get in the gym or do any of that stuff. And for me, every player is different. Silky wingers, they don't need all that. But my position is different. I have to go up against the big, strong centre forwards, and I like being dominant. Like, I'm not going to allow anyone to dominate me. So I know if I tick that off, I've done all my work. But trying to do stuff at home with like a little kettlebell or a dumbbell was just nowhere near what I needed. So it's nice that maybe I can start getting back into that gym and hopefully getting my body in the condition it needs to be. Because I remember, being at Rangers, I was in the gym 3 times a week. I was boxing in the evenings, and I felt great. So that's probably a big thing for me. And then hopefully, mate, I'll just ease into it, and then I'll be off, ready to go.
Oh, great. And now I want to kind of transition. You're in America. You're in California. You're playing in the USL. I think there's a lot of young talent as you're observing that are either coming and watching you play or coming and wanting advices in any way of trying to go where you came from. They would love to go and pan out their journey to get there. Obviously, there is logistics that fall into play of having a European passport, of having the talent, timing the right age to go, all of those stuff, having the right connections, to connecting yourself with the right group that gets you in the door, but also takes care of you the right way too. If we can go like that, and what's the best way, if there is a best way, or to get yourself, let's just say, to the UK?
I think that's a great question. Okay, so this is my advice that I give to the boys that are around me. First of all, I think you've got to be playing, regardless of what level that is. You've got to be playing in the first team, because it's a different ball game. I could show you 10 pretty footballers, but can you do it on a Saturday night or whatever it is when we play here? Because that's unfortunately the only way you're getting judged. I could take you to London right now. I'll take you to the cages, and I'll show you 100 boys, that are amazing with their feet in little futsal sort of situations, and they do things that are crazy, and that's great. But like, you need to be able to do it in front of a stadium, and you need to be able to do it consistently, and you need to be doing it. You need to do the ugly stuff. It's all right doing all the nice magical stuff, but can you then track your runner? Can you win your set pieces? Can you take on information for the team? Can you do the graveyard shift where you have to go and press your fullback just so that it stops them playing out? Like, you got to go and do that stuff as well. That's where everyone sort of doesn't really realise that, all these guys that look great with the ball at their feet, yes, but they also do the ugly stuff as well. And unfortunately, when boys watch games on TV, they don't really they just watch the ball. I was watching with a young lad the other day, and I'm actually just watching the centre backs, what they're doing. I'm watching the line. I'm watching how they move. I'm watching their shoulder positions, their heads on a tilt, because I watch a game differently to them. I don't watch the ball. I kind of watch what's going on around it, because that's how I think. Um, but to get over to Europe, you've got to be playing. You've got to be playing. You've got to be better than what's over there. And like I said earlier on in this podcast, what are you doing to outwork the boys that are in those incredible environments who are getting better every day? Because unfortunately, if you're not doing the same, if not more, how are you going to bridge the gap? I just don't understand how you can do it. You know, it's like any industry. If you're not outworking the competition and you're not playing in the first team, how are you getting noticed? I don't know how you are. So it's the reality is you've got to go and work harder and you've got to be playing. And then you can think about being in a state to go to Europe, you know?
If someone, let's just say we're in a situation in America, it's a unique platform. They're 18, killing the game in Southern California, full scholarship to UCLA, or put a team around and go to Europe. How do you make that kind of decision of if I'm ready for that?
It's a great question. I think your inner belief and how much desire you've got. I think that comes down to it, because I can imagine it's a great opportunity to go and have that, like you said, that scholarship and everything at UCLA, and that opportunity. It's amazing. But how many times is the opportunity going to open the door to you to go into Europe? And that's ultimately where everyone wants to be. Like, you know, I speak to all the young boys at the club that I'm at, and, you know, they always ask me what's Europe like, and, you know, Europe, UK, Premier League. And you got to remember, everyone around the world's trying to do the same thing. You know, like the UK is deemed to be the highest, you know, of football, and it is. The Premier League is. That's where all the money is. Everyone knows that. But, you know, what are you doing to get there? Because there's boys from Brazil, there's boys from Mexico, there's boys from Italy, there's boys from Sweden, you name it, across the globe that are trying to get there, you know. So you've got to just, I think if that opportunity arises, I think you've got to go and take it. You've got to give it the best account of yourself you possibly can. And then from there, you know, you need a little bit of luck, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I think you've got to have that inner belief that you can go and do it. You're going to go and impress the right people and make your journey yourself. Because, listen, no one's going to do it for you. Unfortunately, listen, there's no cheat book to this. You've got to go out and do it yourself.
Robbie, is there a time frame of age? Is there like a starting age? Is there an ending age that if you didn't put your foot in the door in Europe at this ending age, there's no chance of getting in there?
I think if you're not playing in the first team at 22, I think you need to start thinking about other maybe potential options, and that's just the reality of it, because there's boys at 16 playing.
Yeah,
you know, and now you've got 6 years on them boys. So listen, I didn't start playing regularly in the first team at Wigan until I was like, I think 21, 22, but I was a centre back. So I think centre back and goalies, I think you're always ahead of. Sorry, you're not in the same sort of time frame as like your wingers and your strikers. And I'll tell you for why. Because when you're 2-0 up as a centre back, you're never going to get put on by the coach. Or if you're 2-0 down, you're probably never going to get put on because your two experienced centre backs are not going to get substituted. If you're a striker and you're losing the game 1-0, for example, 10 minutes to go, go on, son, go and see if you can nick a goal. You know, you can get 10 minutes, you can get 15 minutes, you can get a deflection and it pops to you and you just pop it in and that's it. You know, you're starting next week. So like those boys have more of an opportunity than we do as the boys at the back. But I think you've got to be in and around the first team as young as you can, just to go and get that knowledge, that experience, and then think about, you know, propelling your career. But I think 22 is a fair age, and I think I'm being a bit generous there as well. So
yeah, no, that's a fair point. And you know, I think it gets hard for people like to get in the first team, because it's like you say that you got to go out there and get games and you got to be proactive, but it's kind of like, what is it that gets you started? Do you go and, like you said, knock at the doors and say, hey, are you going to take me? Are you going to take me? Are you going to take me?
The managers were sick of me. They were sick of me. I was knocking there every week because I didn't play. I was the 19th man, or I was on the bench, and everyone's like, oh, you're doing well, you're on the bench. I'm like, nah, that's not good. I want 90 minutes. I want to play 90 minutes. Like, I want to play. And I was knocking on the door. I was going 500 miles north, or, you know, my mum would like go, oh, where are you going now? And I'd be like, well, I'm going to Yeovil. And they had like 9 loan players and only 5 could play. But I thought, well, if I could go and get 1 or maybe 2 or even 5 games, I'm going. And you've got to remember, I'm going on loan with boys from Man United, Chelsea. They're all trying to do the same thing. Now, Watford is not deemed as Chelsea, but I'm just as good as those Chelsea boys, but I don't have the badge of Chelsea. Now, what am I doing then to outwork the Chelsea boys? Because they've already got in their contracts that if they don't play, then that club has to pay their wages that week, and I don't. So I've got to be so much better than the Chelsea boys and the Arsenal boys and the Man U boys. It was hard, but it was the way it was. And I was never going to play in Watford's first team ahead of the captain of, Jay Demerit, the American guy. He was playing. He was captain.
Yeah.
Why am I going to play against him? I'm not. Yeah. So I had to go and do it. And I wasn't scared. I'll go knock on the manager's door. I say, listen, all due respect, I want to play. Where can I go? And he's like, go on then, off you go. And I think they just got sick of it in the end. It was like, off you go then. If you think you're ready, go and do it. And I did. I said, okay, well, I'm going.
No, it's so simple, Robbie, but it's like people are like, I don't want to get told I can't do it. I don't want to. But in the end of the day, your skin at that level got to be so thick, and you got to just say, I don't care. And I go, fail or succeed, at least I'm trying and I'm working my butt off because I know what I'm worth. And you just said that self-belief. You have to have that self-belief, because if you don't believe, who else is going to believe in you? What I wanted to kind of get into to kind of put us in a conclusion, I want to do something fun. I wanted to start out with two questions before we give the floor to you to close this out. First one is your favorite player of all time. Second one is your favorite team of all time. And the reason I say all time is I want a story behind it. If you came about it, of your infatuation with this team, what got you going. Same thing with the player as well.
So player I loved. Okay, can I say two or not?
Of course. No restriction.
So as a kid, I loved Gerrard. I was obsessed with him. I used to play midfield, but then also found out about Zinedine Zidane, and I couldn't believe that this guy was both-footed and he was majestic and he was silky and he could left and right and he could volley and he could do this and do that. And I just thought, wow. I think they're just the complete footballers. Gerrard for me was just insane. Favorite team, probably I'm an Arsenal fan, so I love the Invincible year. The Henrys, the Vieiras, those boys were just crazy. So they were probably my favorite team for sure. And I remember, I think it was the year that I actually moved from Highbury. I think it was the last year at Highbury, whatever it was. I went to the game and it was just beautiful. Yeah, I loved it.
No, that was great times. I think that whole matchup of Henry and Ronaldinho in his prime, they were always talking who's faster. And then obviously Ronaldinho being that Brazilian one. I mean, like they were, and then that, I think that I don't forget it to this day, that foul Lemon committed. It's funny because Barcelona scores the goal. If the ref doesn't ruin the game, don't give the free kick, give the goal, just give a yellow card. But when you pull the thing and Arsenal's playing with a man down, they missed a free kick, but the juice was out of it. But I give credit to Arsenal in that time, man. They were pulling it in, but that's not even the invincible you're talking about even Henry, Dennis Bergkamp.
Right.
What was Dennis Bergkamp? Huh?
That goal for the Netherlands where he just touches it, or even that one where he flips it around the shoulder. They're just wired differently.
Even that touch he had against Argentina. I mean, he was difficult.
Yeah.
But Robbie, thank you so much for putting in the time to come on the show. What I want to do is what we do with a lot of our guests. We like to be a platform for them, for you guys, and we want to kind of let you guys close us out in any projects you have going on that you wanted to share, to kind of make our audience aware of it, so it better enhances the game, so they know there's resources out there that you guys are putting out there that they can kind of connect. So I want to kind of give the floor and we can go from there.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, listen, at the minute, mate, my main focus is, being here, playing at Orange County. Obviously, if there's games that the stadium start filling up again, it'd be nice to see some faces. And on the flip side of that, I'm very interested in seeing young talent. I have a very good connection of network of people back home, and I have a lot of people that always sort of come to me and say, look, is there anyone that you like the look of that we think maybe we could take to Europe? So my interests at the minute are just scouting, just seeing if there's young talent I believe in, and I've definitely seen some that I think definitely got a chance. So yeah, like my sort of role right now outside of playing is just sort of monitoring that, and I speak closely with some big clubs back home, big clubs, because they know the market here is so big and relatively cheap in comparison. I know there's passports and stuff, all that kind of stuff involved, but yeah, my main focus is obviously playing. Recently just done a little training video that you might be able to see on Instagram. So if you have a look at that, it just kind of gives you sort of interest. It just kind of shows you what my day-to-day looks like in terms of training and, you know, the stuff I'm doing on my own because I want to get ready and sharp. So gives you a little insight to that. But, you know, honestly, like any young players that are listening or families that are listening, you know, don't feel afraid to reach out to people like me and you that, you know, have done it and we've been on that journey. And sometimes just asking, you know, a simple question just makes, you know, sense. It makes, you know, it just puts, you know, a bit of confusion or doubt to rest. And, you know, we've lived it, you know, I've been living this for my whole life. I want to try and help if I can.
And again, thank you so much for making in the time. But when any set times of when the season's going to get going for any of audiences and people that want to come out?
Yeah, I think we're looking at end of May. We were expecting like the fixtures to be announced, but they still haven't been. So I'm not too sure, mate. But end of May is what we're penciled in. So we start preseason in March.
So your
mid-March,
preseason,
and then,
so your preseason got delayed a little bit then.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously we start right about now. I'd suppose maybe even a week earlier, but at the minute we're just ticking over. I suppose doing sessions 3 times a week with the club, and then we all have our own stuff that we do as well, our gym and little bits that we work on ourselves. So once we get back into the full swing, mate, I'll let you guys, know, and hopefully if I can help out with some tickets, maybe to come and watch, and just to help out a little bit, it'll be nice for sure.
Fantastic. Again, Robbie, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.